Hello, happy Christmas! It's Christmas! It's Christmas morning with you, and it's Christmas Eve here in England. But Granny's thinking of you, and I thought what I'd do is read you a Christmas story so that if you have any quiet moments throughout your Christmas when you think, oh, I'm a little bit tired, I'd quite like to sit in a quiet corner and listen to a story, then you've got one to listen to. Here it is. And it's called The Snowman. I don't think you're going to have any snowmen in Australia because it's too hot for Christmas to have snowmen in Australia. And I don't think we will here either. It's a bit chilly, but it's not snowing. But it's a lovely Christmas story about a snowman. And I have got my Santa here, do you remember him from last Christmas? And my Christmas hamster. And they're here to listen to the story too. So it's a famous story called The Snowman, and it's about a little boy called James. Are you ready? When James woke up in the morning, it had already begun to snow. He could see the fresh snow fall from his bedroom window. James sprang out of his bed and quickly ran to his window. He gazed outside in amazement. As far as his eyes could travel, everything was covered by a blanket of snow. James quickly dressed out of his night clothes and ran downstairs in a hurry. Once he was downstairs, he ran into the kitchen and he demanded his breakfast. James could not wait to go outside and play in the snow. As soon as his mummy served the breakfast, James gobbled it up in a hurry. Before James could run outside, his mother reminded James to dress properly. It was very cold outside. So James ran around his house collecting his coat, his socks, his gloves, his boots, and James dashed out into the garden with all the snow the moment he got dressed. He ran everywhere, leaving footprints behind. He ran in circles. He was thoroughly enjoying the snow. Wherever he ran, his footprints followed him. After some time, James decided to make snowballs. He hurled them at his house, and one of them happened to hit a window. For that, James received a terrifying glare from his mother that made him stop. So he decided to make a snowman. He decided to make bigger snowballs and carve out his own snowman. So he rolled and rolled some snow, making a huge snowball. He rolled it around, gathering more snow on it. By the time he was done rolling the snowball, it was already time for lunch. His mother came calling for him, and James sadly followed her inside. During lunch, all he could think about was his snowman. He hurried his lunch, and after that, he took a stool along with him. James started with the rolling again. This time he made a snowball which was a little smaller than the one before, which was to be the snowman's body. Then another snowball was made, the smallest of all, which was to be the snowman's head. Then James ran inside and bought an old hat and scarf of his mother's. The old hat and scarf suited his snowman really well. James then gave the snowman a tangerine nose and eyes of coal. He made the buttons with coal as well. And finally, James drew a mouth on his snowman. The snowman looked wonderful. By the time James was done with his snowman, it had already started to get dark. His mother came calling and James walked back inside sadly. James couldn't think of anything except his snowman. Soon it was bedtime and James was sent to his bedroom. That night, sleep did not come easily to James. Suddenly, he woke up properly in the night. He sprang out of his bed and hurried to his window. He could see the snowman with his old hat and scarf. James decided to go outside, even though it was the middle of the night. So he put on his coat and he crept downstairs noiselessly. Just when James was about to step outside, the clock struck 12. Dong, dong, dong. And then, through the door, James saw the snowman starting to move. Oh, the snowman was alive. James ran outside that very moment. He had never been so happy. James happily danced around the snowman and invited the snowman inside the house. And so they went inside the house. The snowman was amazed at everything. Once they were inside, James took the snowman to the Christmas tree by the television. James also flipped a switch and the tree began glowing with bright colours. They then went to the parents' room. There, the snowman put on some of James's mother's makeup. The snowman walked to the window and decided they should go outside to play. So they ran outside quietly and they played in the snow. They made snowballs and they threw them at each other. James laughed so happily. They went into the garage then and the snowman found something exciting. They uncovered James's father's motorcycle. It even had the key in it. There was nothing to decide. Off they went through the cold winter night with the snowman in the driver's seat. James felt the cold air brushing through his hair, freezing his face and nose. It was a wonderful experience. They rode past some pigeons. The pigeons flew away with fright. Through the woods nearby they chased a little fox. They went around, driving through the roads for some time before they decided to return home. When James and the snowman returned, James did not know what else they could do now. While James was thinking, the snowman suddenly grabbed James's hand and then he started running. At first, the snowman ran slowly and then he started going faster and faster and faster, and before James knew it, they were flying. The snowman and James took off, flying higher and higher. They flew so high that everything below them seemed tiny. All the snowmen, with their carrot noses, watched them fly by. A little girl who could not fall asleep saw the snowman and James fly by her window. She could barely believe her eyes. Soon they reached the pier and they flew above it. James watched the toy-sized ships fade away. The wind made his hair fly. The snowman's scarf fluttered. They flew over the peaceful ocean. They were bound for the North Pole to see Santa. While flying, they saw a whale, and soon they reached their destination. Everything was covered under a thick snow blanket. The snowman slowly descended along with James. They walked through the dark woods and the snow-covered pine trees. Finally, James came to a clearing. He saw a crowd up ahead, a crowd of snowmen. There were small snowmen and big snowmen and thin snowmen and tall snowmen. All kinds of snowmen had gathered together. None of them were the same. When they saw James and his snowman approach, they moved aside, giving his space to move forward. James was awestruck. He had never seen snowmen walk before. He had never been to the North Pole. And in the middle of a dense crowd stood a small, round man covered in fur with rosy cheeks. Santa. He welcomed James with a warm smile and a loving hug. James's eyes sparkled with joy. Soon, Santa led James to a party. All the snowmen were there. It was beautifully decorated with dazzling lights. The tables full of food and drinks. This was the happiest and most wonderful place. Then, with one signal from Santa, the snowmen started playing their musical instruments. In no time, the place was filled with laughter and dancing snowmen. James danced along with them, giving a wide smile. all of them danced and ate till it was almost morning. The snowman nudged James, telling him it was time to leave. So James took his leave, saying his goodbyes to the snowman and Santa. Before James went back, Santa gave him a present. James did not waste a moment quickly unwrapping the present. He found a soft woolen scarf in it and with small snowmen printed all over it. James was extremely happy with the present. It was the best one. So he hugged Santa and took off with his snowman. They flew in the sky as they had never flown before. Soon they were back in the garden. The snowman pushed James towards his home. James knew it was time to go to bed after his adventure. He reluctantly shook the snowman's hand and bid him goodbye. He did not want to leave his snowman behind. The snowman waved at James with a smile on his face. Just when James was about to go inside and lock the door, he ran back to the snowman and hugged him for the last time. After that, James went to bed and slept soundly. He had the most wonderful adventure with his snowman. He would always remember this day. James waved at the snowman from his room one last time, and then he went to sleep. Next morning, James sprang out of his bed in a hurry. He grabbed his coat, ran downstairs as quickly as he could, putting the coat on as he climbed down the stairs, and James ran outside without even saying hello to his parents. His parents looked at each other with disbelief. They couldn't understand why their son was running outside the first thing in the morning. Outside, James shielded his eyes from the bright sunlight. He was running to his snowman, but he found nothing. The light had melted his snowman. A small heap of snow with the old hat and scarf, along with the coals and tangerine, was all that was left of the snowman. In a great hurry, James searched his pockets. He was afraid he would not find his scarf, but it was in his coat. The small scarf was a reminder of the great night and his adventure with his lovely, lovely snowman that he would always, always remember. So there, that's the story of the snowman. And if you have a quiet moment, maybe you've listened to it and enjoyed it. Granny loves you lots, and I'll also send you something else to do with the snowman that you can look at too. Love you. Have a lovely Christmas.